Good morning, everyone. It's a new week. This is Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. I'm Ini John Mekwa. Well, we do business for just about 30 minutes and then we head back to the Sunrise Daily studio. We're beginning from the global space as usual. No, we start from Naira this morning and we look at how Naira closed last week. Well, there you have it. NFEM, we see closed in the positive. There was a gain of 0.52%. It opened on Friday at 1,675 naira 49 kobo, but closed at 1,666. So just a couple of nairas there gained, about 8 naira 77 kobo is what we see. That was gained. But for NAFEX, it was on the flip side. There it dropped 0.48%, but we know that more reality is captured right here in this market. And, well, there's appreciation right there, a bit of intervention from the CBN, but we didn't see a lot of intervention from the CBN last week, generally. I guess that's why we don't have so much. But we've seen a sustenance losing the 1,500 level to 1,600. We've seen a sustenance of that in the last about 2 weeks or so. We've been around 1,600. Now let's go to that global space and see that oil prices extended gains on Monday, rising by more than $1, just like it did on Friday, because OPEC Plus has decided to delay the plans to increase output by a month. So of course that's supposed to squeeze prices and lead to this increase. So we see increase this morning, 1.614 for Brent at $74.28 a barrel, while for WTI is 1.74 at $70.70. So that is a major price driver for today. That's OPEC Plus decision to hold off from adding supply to the market. So they will extend of 2.2 million barrels per day for another 1 month in December, with an increase already delayed from October because of falling prices and weak demand. Now let's come to Nigeria. Still talking about the oil and gas part now. Well, it seems we haven't seen the last of, whatever is going on in the oil and gas space between Dangote on the one hand, Ipman and Petron, and then of course NNPCL is in that picture. So now Dangote is coming to say that they're reacting to what they term a misinformation by Ipman and Petron on the price of PMS imported into the country. In a statement signed by the Group Chief Branding and Communications Officer, Mr. Anthony Chejina, Dangote challenges anyone claiming that they can land PMS at a price that is cheaper as importing, that it may mean that they're importing substandard products and conniving with international traders to dump low-quality products into the country without concern for the health of Nigerians or the longevity of their vehicles. So they clarify that post-deregulation, NNPC set the pace of selling PMS to domestic marketers at 971 naira per litre for sale into ships, and then 990 naira for sale into trucks. This, according to the refinery, set the benchmark for their own pricing, as they say, that they sell at 960 for a litre into ships and 990 into trucks for a litre. And so they're seeking to clarify some of those stories you may have been hearing in the country from Ipman, from Petron, and of course from NNPCL. Now let's shift from the oil and gas and go to the pharmaceutical. This concerns everyone in the country. We know with the exit of a lot of pharmaceutical companies, among other companies in the country, we've seen inflation in pharmaceuticals, and that of course has been a worrying one. So for instance, we've seen rising inflation impact pharmaceuticals, with firms' finished goods inventory increasing by 64, I believe we have a slide for that, 64.6% for the first quarter of this year, 2024, and then between 2019 and 2023, the selling cost and selling price of Ampiclox, among other pharmaceuticals, went up by over 1,000%. So the cost for Ampiclox surged by 1,390%, while for the selling price went up about 1,100%. Then we look at inflation numbers, and we see contribution to inflation, health's contribution to inflation year on year went up almost 1%, 0.98%, while month on month, we've seen it at 0.08%. Now, let's talk about how perhaps with the exit of the multinationals, we can attract investment into, even if it's domestic investment, into the medical sector and get more medicals, pharmaceuticals, perhaps. We'll be discussing this with Dr. Abdul Mukhtar. He's the National Coordinator, Presidential Value Chain Unlocking Program. Joins us from our Abuja studio. Dr. Mukhtar, good morning, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
All right, so let's start with the situation that we have now. We see that inflation, health has contributed about 0.98%, almost 1% to inflation in the last 1 year. We've seen the price of pharmaceuticals. I mean, time for business to go into some of those very critical one, but a worrying one. And now that we have you, I think you were appointed in 2023 to come into this sector. As coming into the value chain, looking at investment from the private sector into this. What areas are you looking at? What have you been doing, to help cushion the event of this inflation in the pharmaceuticals?
Thank you. So I'm talking about the Presidential Initiative for Unlocking the Healthcare Value Chain. This is a program that was initiated and created by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in October of last year, basically to look at all these key issues. If you look at the numbers, Nigeria with a population of 230 million people, we still import about 70 to 80% of the pharmaceuticals that we use. We still import almost 100% of the vaccines that we use and almost 98% of the medical devices that we use. So this is not tenable from multiple perspectives. The first one, obviously, is minimal security of supply. We saw what COVID did during the COVID pandemic. We were running helter-skelter trying to find basic products, basic drugs for our population. From also a public health perspective, you also want to be able to deal with diseases that are epidemic in your own region, but also mostly looking at it from an industrialization perspective. So what this initiative is supposed to do is to find ways to revise these numbers, basically to increase the share of locally manufactured products in Nigeria. That's the first mandate for this initiative. The second mandate is to reduce outbound medical tourism. We spend every year in this country about $2 billion for outbound medical tourism. So building quality infrastructure, diagnostic facilities, and building the human capital, to be able to address that. This is what the initiative is all about, but also again, trying to create jobs in the high quality skilled jobs in the health sector, while also attracting foreign direct investment and mobilizing domestic resources. So this is what we've been doing. We've been approaching it in two ways. We've been trying to shape policy. We've been trying to attract financing. We've been trying to create an ecosystem approach, and all these things are really working, and I'll be happy to discuss many of the things. Just to close on this, to say local manufacturing of products, healthcare products, is a long-term activity. It's not going to happen tomorrow. What we are doing with this initiative, under His Excellency President and also the Honorable Minister of Health as the leader of this initiative, is to create a solid foundation going forward, so that in the medium term, in the long term, Nigerians will have access to high quality products at affordable prices, and that's the ultimate goal for this.
There's been an executive order to attract private investment into the medical space, but the reality is the investment climate in Nigeria at this time is not very friendly at all. So it cannot be different for those who want to go into medical. So I wonder what you have as incentives for those who may even think about it, coming into the investment space, the manufacturing space, whether it's medical or even outside medical.
Yeah, so, we are, like I said, we are looking at it from an ecosystem perspective. The reason why this presidential initiative is different this time around, and I hear people saying to me, we've been doing this over the years in Nigeria. The reason why this is different, a number of things. First of all, is a political will that is clearly apparent right now. Like I said, the President, the Minister of Health, the Minister of Health, but also just to see and to say that this is also part of an integrated health agenda. In Nigeria, we are now currently implementing a health sector renewal investment program where, that is anchored on a number of pillars. And so this is one pillar. So the idea that this is not a standby alone activity, I think that's really very important. It all ties into the overall vision of the healthcare sector, which is to save lives, to create, to reduce pain, both physical and financial pain for all Nigerians. So that is number one. Number two, the way also this initiative is created is at presidential level. And you have multiple agencies. So everybody who has to be around the table for any decisions, key decisions to be made is there. We have five ministries: the Minister of Health, Minister of Trade and Industry, Minister of Finance, Minister of ICT, Minister of Budget and Planning. We also have the regulatory agencies, NAFDAC. We have the research institutions, NIPRID, financing institutions, Bank of Industry, NSIA, representatives of the private sector, which is really key to this initiative. We have customs, you have FIRS, so this is different in the sense that now you have everybody who has to take whatever policy decisions need to be taken for things to happen is actually part of that initiative. The second reason is that we are also looking at it from an ecosystem approach. And when I say ecosystem, I mean we're not just looking at, manufacture. When we started this, we went and met with the various manufacturers, and we created actually a group called Pharmaceutical Consultative Forum. We met in Lagos, we met in Kano, we met with industry players in the pharma sector, in just producing needles and syringes, and basically say, what are your problems? And just listening to them, it looks like the problems, the key issues are policy issues, regulatory issues, also the idea that, just financing and also market access. So we then came up with specific interventions, and this is where the executive order came in. The executive order for pharmaceutical and healthcare products was signed by His Excellency President Bola Ahmed Tinubu end of June of this year, and it actually calls for zero VAT, zero duty for the importation of raw materials and machinery for manufacturing of all of these products, vaccines, pharmaceuticals, test kits, consumables, so there is that whole part of it. The second part of it is the whole market shaping activity. When you produce, as a producer, you want an incentive, you want huge volumes, you want to be able to aggregate those volumes, you want to make sure that the market is working for you, that you'll be able to access the market. So this executive order is, I think, for me, the biggest incentive that we have provided so far to all manufacturers, because now you can be able to really say, we can bring in equipment, we can bring in raw materials for whatever we want to produce. And looking at the cost of production, just doing that, implementing this order will bring down the cost of production for many of these manufacturers by about 10 to 12% if you look at it on a per unit cost basis. So this is a huge incentive. Second thing that we're doing, again, just shaping the ecosystem. When you look at, again, the whole pharmaceutical or life sciences manufacturing value chain, there are so many things from R&D to basic manufacturing to distribution to going into the market. Now, when you talk about R&D, so some of the things that we've done quickly, we are laying a very solid foundation for research and development. We have signed an agreement with a company that has the best technology in the world for mRNA vaccines and mRNA products. Universals is a Belgium-based company. They're coming to Abuja. They've identified a partner, local partner here, where they will establish an mRNA platform for Nigeria. And this, again, the whole industry can build on that. The second is the whole clinical trial ecosystem. Globally, the clinical trials market globally is about $50 billion. Africa accounts for only 2%. So what we're doing, if you want to produce your own products, you have to have a robust clinical trial system. So we are working very hard on that. We've developed a business case where we'll establish about 437 clinical trial centers. We've mapped, their infrastructure, their human capital needs, and we are working, we're raising financing to be able to create that system so that, you have that fundamental basis. We are working with NIPRID, the National Institute for Pharmaceutical Research and Development, to look at how we can target research to specific, products and specific phytomedicines that we use in this country. So now we can basically create our own system. We are working with the regulator, NAFDAC, and the Pharmaceutical Council of Nigeria to see how we can work with them to strengthen their capacity to make them more efficient to be able to regulate pharmaceutical production.
Yeah,
so
Dr. Mukhtar.
Ecosystem.
Dr. Mukhtar, the thing is, what Nigerians would really want to know is how soon can we expect that all of these efforts will lead to a reduction in the price of basic pharmaceuticals that Nigerians use? What can we expect? When can we expect to see a difference? Because we haven't seen a difference yet.
Yes. Okay. So good question. If you listen to the Honorable Minister of Health last week, when he was on TV, he talked about an emergency relief measure that the federal government is already implementing that has been approved by His Excellency President. So you can go back to that interview. I think there is some money that has been allocated to provide immediate relief for the poor and the vulnerable in the society through bulk procurement of products. The minister talked about that. But local production is a medium to long-term activity. So if I told you that tomorrow we're going to start locally producing products, I would be lying to you. But what we're doing is really laying that solid foundation. I would say within the next 6 months to 1 year, you'll really have products. And I can give you specific examples. In terms of pharmaceuticals, we are working with some of the big pharma, and our focus is really in the pharmaceutical sector. Some of the already existing manufacturers here to make sure that provide whatever incentive. Last week I was in Lagos, in Shagamu. Actually, I visited one of those big companies. I saw their ambitions to produce APIs, and they're working. And I've also visited a number of other companies to see what they're doing. So all these things will bear fruit as we lay down the policy programs that we are implementing, as we try to raise cheap financing for manufacturers. So I will say to you, in the medium term, in the next 6 months to 1 year, you'll be able to see activity. Outside, medicines, for example, one of the areas, bed nets, Nigeria has about 25% of the global burden for malaria disease, but we don't produce a single bed net. We signed just about 2-3 months ago an agreement with the world's largest producer of bed nets, a company called Vestergaard. They have found a local partner. They have acquired their technologies. They have acquired their financing. Q1 of next year, they're going to break ground. They're going to produce 10 million bed nets right here in Nigeria for the use of Nigerians, but also to be able to export to the wider West Africa region. So all these things are happening. I think that Nigerians, what I would say is to be patient, but also to understand that these are things that will require us to build an ecosystem that has not been existent, to be able to mobilize resources, to be able to identify, what needs to happen to address, working with other parts of government, the issues around infrastructure for local production, and so on and so forth. But clearly, yes, you are right. But what I said at the beginning, there are emergency measures that have been put in place through the Federal Ministry of Health that will address the immediate concerns and the immediate hardship that Nigerians are facing in this area. All
right, Dr. Abdul Mukhtar, National Coordinator of Presidential Value Chain Unlocking Program. Thank you so much for your time. And we'll count down to 1 year max and hope to see a difference in the pharmaceutical prices
Thank you.
of the country. All right.